Hi, this is Sarah from Hoop Sisters, and in this video we are going to show you how to do the winter snowman from the Where the Heart Is quilt. So you can see we have our backing fabric already cut, and then we have our fabric for the snowman and the snow on the ground. And then here is our winter background fabric. And then we are going to do the optional wool batting in this block. As you can see, we've prepared it by pressing the edges so that when we tack it down, nothing gets caught. And then I've hooped our battleizer. I've already done the first step, which is the placement stitch. I did that, however, in a darker thread just so that you guys could see it. Traditionally, we would do this with a water-soluble thread. Okay, so I've already done step 2. That was to tack down the wool batting that I had prepared. I did that with water-soluble thread, and it'll just stitch a zigzag to tack that down. Step 3 is going to also use water-soluble thread, and we are going to stitch a line across the bottom right here to stitch our pattern for where we're going to place the fabric in further steps. So as we do this, I'll get the machine started, and you can see I'll kind of push down the wool batting as we're going so that it doesn't get caught in the presser foot. So this is after step 3. You can see we have our water-soluble line. Now we are going to tack down the winter background fabric, and we're going to place it in this top rectangle right here. So we will just line that up. I'm again going to use water-soluble thread to tack this down, and then we'll come back and show you what that looks like. So now that we have our winter background fabric tacked down, and I've trimmed it to about 1/4 inch at the bottom, we are going to take our 1 3/4 by 7 inch piece of snow fabric and tack this down. This we're going to use a neutral thread. We are going to place this right side down, and we'll line it up just about with that 1/4 inch at the bottom, and we'll stitch a seam right here. So now that we have our snow fabric tacked down with that neutral thread, for step 6, we'll turn it right side up, and we'll need to finger press this seam. We are also going to go back to the water-soluble thread and the needle for this step, and then we'll also add the backing fabric to the back of the hoop. You can just take that and line it up in that placement stitch. If you want, you can use a temporary spray adhesive. I'm not going to. I find that with the the battleizer, it normally stays on the back of the hoop just fine. So now that our backing fabric is on, I've turned off the automatic thread cutter on my machine, and I will match my bobbin thread to the thread in the needle for the remainder of the block. This will give you a much cleaner looking back of your block once you're finished. Now for step 7, we are going to put water-soluble thread in the needle, and we are going to sew the placement stitch for our snowman. For step 8, I will take my snowman fabric and align it with the placement stitching. In the needle, I have a matching thread that matches my snowman fabric, and I also have that in the bobbin as well. So this step will sew the tack down for the snowman. So after you've tacked down your snowman applique in step 8, you're going to use your hoop scissors mini, and you will trim away that excess fabric right up as close as you can get to that stitching right there. Steps 9 and 10 are going to sew both the snowman nose as well as some detail in his arms and buttons. You will do these next, and you'll have matching thread in the needle and in the bobbin for both of those steps. Okay, so now we are through step 10. For our final step, number 11, we are going to put white thread in the needle and in the bobbin, and then we are going to stitch the beautiful quilting. Okay, so now that our block is completely done, the last step would be just to trim it. What I've done is I brought my instructional page over to the table with me because each side is trimmed a little differently. You can also, as you've seen in the other videos with Annie, mark on the battleizer underneath how to trim each side. But for this top side, we will trim it through all layers to 1.5 inches. You won't have fabric that's going to extend up that far, and that is okay as long as you have at least a 1/4 inch of fabric up here. And then for the left side and the bottom side, we are going to trim a 1/2 inch through all layers. And then the right side of this block, we will use Trimmer by George and trim away the backing fabric and the battleizer, and then trim the remaining fabric to 1/4 inch. Okay, so now our block is trimmed and completed, and there is the back. And now you can move on to the other parts of this row.